Affiliate and Partner Marketing Association is a not-for-profit trade association for the affiliate industry. We're approaching 3 years old now. It's literally about 3 years ago to the day when I first started having conversations with a few networks, a few agencies about coming together and trying to create a collective voice for the affiliate and partner marketing industry in the UK. We'd previously had something via the IAB, Affiliate Marketing Council, but that had sort of fallen by the wayside, and you had to be a member of the IAB in order to qualify for that. And the reach wasn't huge, so there was a feeling amongst some quarters that they kind of had been omitted from a lot of conversations, important conversations about industry topics. So reached out to a handful of companies, WebGains included, and got some initial support. We launched with 20 members in October, that PI Live in October 2023. And we've grown since there. So we've got about 50 paying members. Advertisers can join for free. We have about 130 brands that have registered with us for membership. And we are trying to work across as many areas as possible. Like our addressable audience, obviously significant and varied. Thousands of publishers, brands, agencies, networks. And we ask them really what things are important to them, and that varies obviously from company to company. Some people want data, research, insights. Other people want training, help, guides, best practice. And we try and bring all of those things together in the roadmap, which we agree towards the end of the year. And this year's roadmap, we're focusing in on AI, as you might imagine, focusing in on best practice and compliance, and we're also focusing in on attribution and generally advocacy for the channel as well. This was an interesting exercise actually, because we met the ICA, the Information Commissioner's Office, late last year, and we assumed that they had no knowledge or very limited knowledge of our industry. So we were thinking quite carefully about how we could encapsulate the affiliate channel. And we talked about it in terms of consumer empowerment, working with business models that enable brands to sort of connect to their next consumer. We talked about it as being like an incubator channel. So it's where startups and entrepreneurs come to build their businesses out, some of the most innovative businesses in the UK. So I think those two angles, talking about it in terms of being able to connect brands with their next customers through whatever means that they want, and then also connecting them with innovators and entrepreneurs that are kind of building out new tech solutions. We asked a question in our qualitative survey last year, for which we asked brands, agencies and publishers whether AI was a risk or an opportunity. I think that publishers typically see it as an opportunity, which is great. We know they're entrepreneurial, we know they're always looking for the next angle, the next way that they can use the next wave of technology in order to sort of grow their business and offer different products and marketing technologies to brands. But AI still, we're still very much in the foothills of that conversation about what that means, and we know the LLMs don't really know what they're doing from a revenue point of view at the moment. They kind of seem to be shifting and changing their minds quite quickly about how they're going to monetize that content. Also, within AI, we're not just talking about it as kind of a homogenous thing. I can see a situation where it affects certain affiliates in different ways to others. Again, if we're thinking about closed user groups, if we're thinking about cashback sites, reward sites where you have to be logged into within their ecosystem in order to get your reward, does that mean that they're more insulated in an AI world? Because as a consumer, you have to be tracked by them. So it's very early days. We don't know, but we do have we have a task force for AI, and we have some really good brains on that task force. And when we had our kickoff call at the start of this year, it was kind of an open forum to discuss what we wanted to do this year. And because there is a lot of confusion and there's a generally lack of knowledge about what AI means within the affiliate channel, we basically are going to focus in on just trying to educate people and iteratively build out content that educates people. But part of that as well is also understanding what's actually currently happening, which I don't think there's a lot of visibility on at the moment. So are publishers actually seeing a drop in traffic? Are they seeing a drop in conversions? Is that skewing towards different publisher models? At the moment, we don't really know. So I think one of the things we want to do is run a survey for publishers where we ask a handful of questions around what impact they're seeing AI having on their traffic and their conversions at the moment. We are. It was interesting actually. I was at an event yesterday, and there was a session on attribution, and they focused in very much. It's actually a session that I thought could have been done 15 years ago, because they talked about how last click doesn't reflect the value of digital marketing. And then they said it doesn't actually reflect the value of affiliates. And it's sort of, well, we know that, last click is just one step in the process. It happens to be the thing that we base most of our payments around, but that shouldn't be at the exclusion of understanding the value that's delivered. I think there has been a shift in the last couple of years. I've noticed it. I mean, I'm not necessarily that close to sort of brand campaigns anymore, but I have noticed there has been a shift towards brands wanting to understand fuller funnel contribution. So that may be going away, but it is this sort of focusing on the fact that we're a last click channel, and we don't recognise that we're obsessed with that, and we don't recognise the value elsewhere. And I don't think that's ever been the case. It's just that brands have never necessarily been in a place to be able to understand that issue better. So I think there's some fundamentals there. I think very often the fundamentals get forgotten, and they're basic, obvious things, really. But it's amazing how often they get neglected or misunderstood. Things like tracking. You have to have your foundations. You have to be absolutely certain that everything you're doing, you have all of those building blocks in place. And that you shouldn't look to make shortcuts around that, and you shouldn't look to do ambitious things and get ahead of yourself without those things being in place. So it goes without saying, that's your building blocks, your bread and butter, the nuts and bolts of your program have to be secure. Then when you've got that, it's again something that I've noticed that people are becoming better at is just flexibility towards the channel. We are a test and learn channel, and I think that's one of our strengths. The business model lends itself to test and learn really easily, because the risk is really tied up in the resource that you expend trying to build those relationships rather than the cost associated with them. So I think having a flexibility, being open, that test and learn, by all means, sort of, fail fast and move on to the next thing, but being agile and being flexible, also working flexibly around the payments that you can offer as well. So by all means, have a target CPA and a target, budget that you're working towards, but that doesn't mean that you're fixed in terms of what you have to offer universally, or at 2 or 3 different levels of commission. Having the flexibility to understand that actually this element of the channel might be quite expensive, but it's driving the right types of customers. And as long as you can work that to a blended CPA, as long as you can work it to your overall target CPA, that shouldn't be a problem. So flexibility, agility, obviously resource. We're still quite a manual channel. Some of that is going away as AI makes people more efficient in terms of things like reporting and recommendation engines. But you have to invest the resource. There aren't really there are some shortcuts, but ultimately it does come down to boots on the ground and people paying attention and being having that resource available to be able to invest in the program properly. Yeah, I've really noticed it even just in this year around closed user groups. We've seen recently one of them appearing on Dragon's Den, now getting investment and board support from established closed user groups. Was having conversations yesterday around closed user groups in particular about, whether there are so many of them now, about whether we run a specific event focusing in on just those types of companies. I think there's a lot of exploratory work to be done around how they work. There's some questions that I have around what do you do? If you're a so by closed user groups, we're talking obviously about focusing in on certain segments and targets. blue light card focusing in on NHS and emergency workers, discounts for teachers, obviously focusing in on teachers. You've got your kind of student beans, you've got Unidays who are focusing obviously on a younger student audience. The thing that I find really interesting about those is obviously they can be very targeted, but it's sort of what happens when the people within those cohorts cease to be in those cohorts, when people graduate, or if you're running a closed user group that is based around expectant mothers, what happens when they're no longer expectant mothers? So I think there's some really interesting ways that segment's going to evolve, but definitely that's an area that I'm seeing a huge amount of interest in at the moment. Some of the more established models over the last few years we're seeing good growth in, so CSS partners in particular. There seems to be a real appetite amongst those companies that are CSS partners to get in front of brands and help support their PPC activity, complement their existing PPC stuff within the search space. So we're seeing good growth there, and tech partners as well. And tech partners is quite an amorphous term, right? We know that because effectively they're a subset of technology, and that technology can be a whole variety of things. There are dozens and dozens of those tech partners now, and I would imagine that they will continue to emerge. I mean, you can do it through the affiliate channel, right? So if you wanted to track it, and one of the things I think is very often underrated, certainly underrated in terms of capability that's offered by networks and platforms, is you can track all of that in one place. There's no reason why you couldn't use an affiliate network to track your paid search activity or your social activity. It doesn't have to, and you can pay that out on a different model, a different metric, and you're storing it all in one place, have all the reporting in one place. There's no reason. And I often think also that these are experts in their field, and they're experts at running stuff based on ROI and based around delivering to last click CPA. So why not experiment? And it is, we are a test, as I said, we're a test and learn channel. So have a fixed term budget, allocate some budget, have those conversations. You can RFP that stuff as well, right? There's a ton of companies out there that work in the affiliate space. Work with your networks or your account managers to identify your top 3 or top 5, and you could always RFP it. I mean, I've been involved in that in the past, going out and literally saying this brand wants to run their paid search activity through the affiliate channel. Go and pitch for the business. I would rather brands were completely comfortable and confident in what they were investing in to begin with. And I think very often there's a reticence and there's a lack of awareness, because affiliate programs are always on, right? You can have worked with brands for 10 years, 15 years, and you've been continuously working with them across that time. And their programs will change and they will morph and they will evolve, and different people will come in who will have different priorities. I've seen it in the past where a different marketing lead will come in who loves cashback, and the brand's previously not used cashback, and so they go, no, we want to work with cashback partners, and that automatically is going to add a chunk of revenue on, right? And then someone else might come in and they change tack and go, actually, no, we want to invest a lot more in content. So the fact that programs do morph over time and they don't tend to be campaign based means that programs can ebb and flow, they can grow, they can shrink. But I would much rather be in a position where a brand is working, let's say they're working with 100 active affiliates, they are 100% confident in those active affiliates, and then they work with their networks, work with their account managers, work with their agencies to say, right, if we are going to grow by 10% or 20% this year, who are the 10 additional partners that I need to add in and why? And just take a very strategic incremental approach to adding affiliates in. I think that is feasible. There's always going to be a limit about what you can do, but I'd much rather a brand grew iteratively and tactically. I think it is inevitable that sometimes brands will be falling short on targets, and then they will turn around to account managers or their account team and say, we're 20% behind on budget. If we throw some more money at you, can you drive some more sales? And you'll be, well, of course. If you can give me a great voucher code, if you can give me a great cashback rate, and you can do that, and you can grow the account quickly in order to hit targets, but that isn't necessarily very strategic. And so, you know, you'll always want that money, but you'd much rather work with them strategically and tactically to sort of grow it iteratively, where you always have that money and they're confident in what they're investing in. So I think that subnetworks are problematic. There are good quality subnetworks out there, and there are some that are less good, if I'm being diplomatic. I think one of we're kind of victims of our own success in that the affiliate channel is getting a lot more attention than it ever has done. And with that attention, you get lots of companies that are interested, some great quality companies, others that are less good. And because the UK market is mature and it's big, you get companies outside of the UK that want a part of that. And so what we're particularly seeing is companies outside of the UK kind of coming into the space and kind of not adhering to the higher standards that we have in this country. So I think that's problematic. We are working on a code of conduct around subnetworks that we want them to adhere to. It should be, it's quite prescriptive. So it should be we're not a regulator, but it should be self-regulating in that it's quite prescriptive, it's quite detailed, it's quite granular. So it effectively, anyone that can't adhere to the different elements within the code, there may be a few technical reasons why people can't. But again, we're having that conversation, we're being open and transparent. And because the affiliate channel being always on means that you're always going to there are always going to be new partners applying, new tech that's developing. And the challenge we have is trying to assimilate it within the existing frameworks that we have in the existing ecosystem. And some of that stuff we've been able to kind of create kind of like a third way through in order to be able to work with those partners, but in a way that is respectful to the affiliate program. So I'm thinking around like attribution rules that we've developed in the past around kind of soft click or stand down technologies, whereby, yes, we can work with stuff that is premised more towards the conversion, but we can do it in a way that's respectful of earlier funnel activity. So we're not saying that activity isn't valuable. It's just that when you're working with a very diverse range of publishers, you need to, in an increasingly crowded affiliate marketplace where typically people are still fighting for the last click, that you have to create standards, you have to create rules in order to be respectful of your kind of affiliates that you might have worked with for years. So that's always something that we're constantly monitoring. I always think, I think we're in 2026, the affiliate channel is more diverse and publisher mixes on programs are healthier than they ever have been. I always remember there used to be, when I used to think about affiliate programs, it would always be, we would see sort of the tipping point of being the 50% mark that is incentivized based, i.e. vouchers, coupons, cashback, reward, whatever mechanic that comes from incentivized traffic. And we would always look to try and keep that below 50%. And I think that's coming down even further. I mean, it's difficult to generalize about affiliate programs because they're all different and they all have different marketing mixes. And some people listening to this will think, well, it's 80% on my program. But if it is 80%, then that's an opportunity to shrink that, because there's tons of opportunities to actually have a more blended mix. And so for me, it's just about us continuing to create a more varied marketplace for people to tap into. I think also having a more kind of programmatic approach to how people can connect with publishers and set up deals so that they can work those deals more quickly and that it's less manual to be able to add different publishers in. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you would want that one, right? You don't want to be over reliant on a single partner or a single partner type. And so it's just that for me is like a sign of a really healthy program whereby you can go, well, a cashback's 10%, vouchers are 10%, but a CSS partner that I might have introduced is now 5%. and they all operate differently, and they're effectively, I always say about affiliate marketing, it's like digital marketing in microcosm, and effectively that, as I say, is a really, if you can have that really healthy mix, then that for me would be and have all of those legitimate opportunities that people are confident about investing in, then that would be kind of like a healthy sign of the industry developing over the next couple of years. So we've taken a little bit of a different approach in terms of the task forces this year. We previously, it was sort of fairly unilaterally decided by me what we were going to work on, having had conversations, but I would put everything together and say, well, these are the projects. Last year, we collated a lot of feedback from the research surveys that we did, as well as running some workshops for around about 40 members late last year. We collated all of that feedback, and we were able to use that to shape what those task force works are working on, and we've also appointed leads for each of those task forces as well. So that's a new approach that we're taking that I hope will bear fruit in Q2 onwards. We've got some good projects. We've got the subnetworks code of conduct. We're going to do some additional work around subnetworks, some guides, some educative materials. We're going to have a reporting function for bad actors. So if you are finding certain activity on your program, be it an advertiser or agency, that will be available to anybody. They can fill in a form on the website, and then that gets fired off to, I would imagine, predominantly networks are going to be mainly interested in having access to that information. We'll act as a facilitator. We're not going to be acting as like a judge on or an arbitrator on that information, but it's just simply, again, it's one of the benefits that we have as an agnostic platform, that we're kind of a place where people can come and feel confident the information they're getting is correct. And so that reporting function, I'm quite looking forward to getting that out of the door. No one's really done anything like that from a trade body point of view in the past. The research we have coming out in April, we also will do the Voice of the Nation research, which is our survey-based stuff again. We're running a whole series of webinars. Got a brand new webinar platform, which is great. So we're going to be hopefully producing a lot of like really rich, deep content around webinar topics over the course of the year. We're hoping to run an advertiser event, workshop-based event in July. And really, it's just sort of like trying to build on that momentum. What I typically have found, in previous iterations pre-APMA, is that if you can get together a good group of people that are invested, then that momentum kind of breeds additional momentum, and you can kind of get on a bit of a roll. And as soon as people start seeing like successive content coming out, and guides and best practice and stuff, then people want more of it, and people will be more invested in trying to build that out. We're obviously always looking for new members. I think if I'm being a bit harsh on the industry, I think that historically we're a channel that, because we are so focused in on ROI and conversions, that we always want to see a return on our investment. But what I think, what was really encouraging when I set the APMA up, is that companies like WebGains were quite happy to invest in something that they weren't necessarily going to get an ROI on or a return on, but they were doing the right thing. They were investing because they knew it's an important thing to invest in. And I think that the more companies that recognize that actually having a place to network and thrash out ideas and contribute to projects and guides and research and things like that is actually benefits everybody. It benefits their business, but it benefits the wider industry. Ultimately, what we're advocating for and what we want to achieve is bigger budgets, right? Because if we have bigger budgets, there's more money for everybody. Our businesses can grow. We can hire more people. We make more money. And that's ultimately what we're advocating for, but we need the funds to do it. We're a not-for-profit, but we're not a charity. So we need funds to be able to operate. And we run pretty much on a shoestring at the moment, but it is enough to kind of have done what we've currently do. But we should be more ambitious than we are, but we are limited by the fact that we have 50 members. There's no reason why we can't have 100 or 150 in the next sort of couple of years. And as soon as we're able to, as soon as we get those additional budgets, we'll just be able to unlock a lot more stuff and build a lot more momentum. And so really, I'd love companies to come on board, have a conversation with us about how they can get involved. Brands can join for free. There are a whole series of benefits that people get that non-members aren't eligible for. So kind of pick up the phone, drop us an email, talk to us about how you can get involved, about the projects that are relevant to you and your business. And yeah, let's kind of continue to do good stuff.